another video podcast of ours. आजको हाम्रो topic is encouraging new ideas and त्यसको लागि चाहिँ we have a new face today with us. She is Mrs. Sabina Baniya. उहाँलाई introduce गर्नु पर्दाखेरि चाहिँ she is a full-time faculty member at Kathmandu University School of Management. So आज चाहिँ हामीले encouraging new ideas भन्दाखेरि चाहिँ हामीले classroom मा चाहिँ how can new tools and like ideas can be brought so that हुन्छ नि classroom को environment मा चाहिँ अलिकति changes चाहिँ हामीले कसरी ल्याउन सक्छौं त्यो लाइन्स मा अलिकति कन्भर्सेसन गर्छौं हैन हामीले. सो आज त्यसको लागि चाहिँ फर्स्ट मा हजुरलाई नामलाई चाहिँ मैले because a lot of people know you I'm sure तर धेरै जनाले नथाहा हुन सक्छ हाम्रो पडकास्ट लिसनर्सहरुलाई. सो तपाईको बारेमा अलिकति केही भनिदिनु न.
मेरो नाम चाहिँ सबिना बानिया भइहाल्यो तपाईले भने जस्तो. Like for 5 years now I've been working in Kathmandu University School of Management as assistant professor. मेरो एरिया चाहिँ more of a like organizational behavior and a little bit about like marketing, advertising. And research is where like my heart lies in, right? So it's like before I used to work in development sector, social marketing company Nepal Cialis as a marketing officer. So I worked there almost for 4 years. Then I had started like teaching part-time because I always had like some passion for like teaching, but then I didn't have confidence त्यो इन्ट्रोभर्ट भएकोले त्यो क्लासमा उभिएर त्यो बोल्न सक्छु भन्ने नै थिएन. बट देन आई सेड आई शुड स्टार्ट समवेयर भने आई जस्ट चेक इफ आई क्यान भने जस्तो. व्हेन आई स्टार्टेड आई कुडन्ट स्टप. सो आई लेफ्ट माई जब एन्ड आई स्टार्टेड स्टडिङ एमफिल. अनि त्यसपछि आई जोइन्ड इन फुल टाइम एज अ फ्याकल्टी. त्यसपछि आई हेभ बिन डुइङ इट एभर सिन्स.
ओके, वन्डरफुल टु नो द्याट. हजुरको बारेमा यसो सुन्दाखेरि बुझ्दाखेरि चाहिँ I've known you as somebody who advocates for progressive education, हैन. So हजुरले चाहिँ like how did you develop a passion for it? अनि हजुरको लागि progressive education चाहिँ what is it like?
So it's like how I developed was like I always had a passion for teaching and then like but then I didn't know like how to become a teacher. So it's like everyone else I started doing on my own. So my idea of like teaching was like I will think of someone who inspired me as a teacher in class and I'll model out the behavior. So that would be the best way to become a teacher. But then when I started doing it, it didn't work out. So then I had a lot of questions like something is not right with the way I'm teaching, because I had good lectures and I had activities, but then after 2 years I started feeling like I don't like what I'm doing. And this luckily what happened was like you finish project, saying you finish education, they collaborated with KU and Kings and they took us through the journey of like their education system, and then that was like more of a eureka moment for me, like okay, there is something else that I don't know. And I started digging up so much on the learning theories, how does learning happen, how does one learn, and I realized like everything I'm doing is wrong. So that was the moment that gave in rise to like how challenging classroom teaching was. And another part in it was like because I'm a researcher, so I could see students are not interested in learning. So at first, like everyone else, my assumption was like students are like that, they don't want to learn. You have to force them, right? Like that's the assumption. But then how long am I going to hold that assumption? Then I came to understanding that I'm not effective enough, so it's not working out, so I have to think about something else. So then the finished project happened and I started learning about learning itself. So that's how I started out, and then I started experimenting a lot of their techniques, and I started learning my own techniques, and that's how like progressive education, trial and error, I started out and it started working. And side by side I started doing research on student engagement. So when I started doing research, I understood from an empirical perspective also like how do students engage. So learning environment is the most important factor that was found by my study. And then another factor was like teacher-student interaction, relationship matters a lot. Teacher is the integral component of learning environment. So I started utilizing those things, and that's how I started off.
Okay. So हजुरले researchको बारेमा भन्नुभयो हैन आफ्नो. So I'm sure there must be a lot of insights that you might have had from there, and from there on it supported you in your classroom endeavors, हैन. So were there any like specific new changes that you tried to bring in your classroom, whether it be in form of ideas, tools, or any sort of resources? Was there anything as such?
Yes, I did after that. Like, for example, I understood that students are not engaged, and because of that, like, maybe they have grades. Like, it's grades. Sometimes it's like grades and learning do not go together. If you do not plan your course plan accordingly, if you are like thoughtfully planning courses, then like learning and grades go together. Otherwise it's like there's a course plan, sometimes like we adopt someone has taught that course earlier, so we copy that course plan and we try to like give as much theories and exam accordingly, and that what happens. But then what I did after I learned like students are not engaged because you're lecturing, they're not listening to, they're like under the desk, they're using mobiles, and you understand their expression after a long period of time. And that question was hitting me so hard because I was realizing I'm not effective, and this is something I love to do, and I'm not effective, and that's not something that I can go with. So what I started doing was like I started creating my own course plan. That was the initial step, and I started learning like how to design courses like Bloom's taxonomy. It's like, for example, it's like learning always has three components. One is knowledge, another is skills, and another is attitude. We call it KSA, right? So the first understanding I need to develop as a teacher is like, with this course, am I just creating a knowledge, or am I going to create skills, or am I going to give them some level of attitude change, right? So if I'm teaching a very general foundational course, then it's about knowledge. So in knowledge also, what level? Should they be able to describe the theory? Should they be able to explain it, or should they be able to analyze it? So what is the level? So when I started designing it, based on that, methodology also changed. If I'm thinking about skills, then they are doing a lot of things, a lot of experiential aspects. If it's about like analyzing or discussing, there are a lot of case studies where they are thinking, they are going out, talking to professionals, and they are making their own set of minds about the theories kind of thing. So that's how I started using. And one component now I use like compulsorily in whatever course I teach is reflection. So one thing that I see missing with students is they don't connect with their course. The course is not about them. But then when I say to them, the first class I say to them, feel for the course. They're not happy about it. Like they don't understand what do you mean by feeling for a course. But then I force them to write, and writing is a very difficult task for everyone. And then about your feelings, and then the question is like, how can you feel about a course? But then when I say feel about the course, I'm not talking about you have to love the course or something like that, but the ups and downs you go through during the process of the course. When were the moments where you were so happy that you learned something, or when were the moment like you felt it didn't work out, or when were the moment where there's a complacent where you didn't express kind of things. But that's a very challenging kind of thing. It's like 2 or 3 people manage to reflect. Other people write like a diary. They write like this happened in class, this happened, but still that is also working for them. So there are other tools also I'm using, but reflection is something that I reflect myself. They have to reflect verbally or like in written, and writing is important because like I read somewhere, like I was doing this course, it says like writing means you being aware of what you're thinking. So that's why I force them to write. At the beginning they resist, but then interestingly my observation is like the lower the students are, younger the ones, they reflect more. The higher they go, there is a like bottleneck. Like my BBA students reflect more beautifully than like EMBA students. They're like, no matter what I say, they say I can't bring in my feelings. That's what my observation is.
Okay, I think that's wonderful to know. I think because as a company working in EI, I think we've been vouching so much for people to reflect and to create that sort of a thoughtful like environment. But it's wonderful to know that educationमा पनि यस्तो एफर्ट्सहरु भइरहेको छ भनेर चाहिँ I think reflection भन्दा बाहेक पनि I'm sure there must have been a lot of challenges that might have come your way, because from where I see it, it's not just you trying to bring about a change in classroom setting, but also you're trying to deal with changes in students' mindset itself, right? So like what sort of challenges like have been there besides like people not wanting to reflect?
So there are a lot of challenges. Is like, for example, if I have to take an example, because I recently finished my course in BBA, it's like they have a lot of expectations. They don't like traditionality. right? They don't like traditionality in teacher, but they are not ready to come out of traditionality as a student, right?
Yeah.
The first thing is like, if I ask, like the first day I ask, what do you expect from this course? They say A as a grade, right? And they like complain a lot, like teachers are traditional, they're not doing too much. They are aware about that, but then they are not ready to come out of it. And then what they don't realize is like traditional, it's easy. It's like you might don't care about the course for a full whole semester, and then after, before a week you study and you get a grades, or you do assignments, and with the semester you do a lot of group work, so you can make someone else do because you are not active, and then finally you do an exam, that's fine. But then in a progressive education you have to put in effort every single day.
True.
If you really want to build up, right? So that is something they are still not ready to, because they are so used to from like nursery to 10 to 12, they have been like that. And if you go to EMBA, that's even more difficult. They'll give you hundreds of excuses, like I have family, I have children. Yes, they have, but then there are people who are doing it, right? So they are like they are always in autopilot mode. They think like classroom will be enough. They are encouraged, motivated, but then the kind of effort they need to put in, like they are not putting in. There are only few people.
Okay.
That is
so the resistance from the students has been one of the major challenges that you face. I think speaking of challenges, I'm sure there must have been positive changes that you might have witnessed, like after you started bringing these new ideas and tools in your class. So what have been some of the changes, or what have been some of the really nice moments that you've experienced after like trying to implement these ideas?
It's like the beauty of progressive education is you never know what will like happen with it. Like it's like the philosophy behind progressive education is constructivism. It's not like you're adopting someone's knowledge, you're creating knowledge within the environment, within the context. So I'm never like in each class I go and I try something, I never know what will happen in that class. It might fail or it might go wonderfully. So some of the moments now which has been like quite what I say, before it used to be one or two, now it's happening quite easy. They come up with something so new as a product, as an outcome of the course, like in terms of project or something like that, something that I also have never imagined of. So that kind of examples are happening often with like students, like they're adopting in the skills. Quite, I remember like the last reflection, one of my students like said, give me a space, I want to reflect verbally. So he came and said like research, it's like he thought research is something that one should learn in the beginning, and he did a course before my course, and then he was like scared of research. So he realized like I'm not up for research. And then I taught him, and then now he says he's comfortable about it. So he's at least I know I don't know much in research, but then I'm not scared about it. So that kind of things are there. And sometimes like for example in my advertising course, like I push them as much as possible, and they come up with like such advertisements with the like utilizations of the theories and those kind of things, and I'm like speechless moments are quite more. And they have like, it's not like they wouldn't remember, they remember all the process. So it's not like just grades and they forget about the course. Of course, they have a lot of memories and emotions, and then reflections. Sometimes I make them write blogs, so that blog remains with them. So their learning is stored in the mind, in the blogs and kind of thing, and they are very grateful about it. So that kind of changes are also there.
Okay, that's wonderful to hear. So I'm sure like there must be a lot of educators who might have been trying to do what you have done in your like classroom spaces. What message or anything that you have to say to them? How can they bring about these kind of changes in their sphere?
I've seen like many like who have like tried and then stopped, and then they went back to be in a traditional spaces because it's easier. Like you've been doing it so long, it has become your habit. So you go on doing it because slide is there now. It's very easy. Like before, it used to be chalk and the duster you had to write. The hard work has all gone. There's a slide, and nowadays you don't even have to prepare slides. The book has slides, so all you have to do is explain. That is like easier thing to do. But with progressive education, if you really want, it's like background work is so much that nobody sees. It's like you're going and you're flowing in the moment, but then you have to sit and you have to learn itself. One thing I want to suggest to every educator is at least learn how learning happens. in the brain, at least learn like how student learns, how adult learns, how children learns. If you are into children, at least you need to know the science behind learning, right? You can't be an educator and don't know how learning happens, right? But then what I think is like, if you're not passionate about teaching education, don't go for it. Don't take it as a job. It's not a job.
Yeah.
If you're inspiring someone, you're affecting someone, it remains, because we remember what someone said in our class. Maybe we don't remember the content, but what they said and what they did to us, it remains with us forever. So if you're really not passionate, if you're not ready to, like, if you're looking for a very attractive kind of recognition kind of thing, this is not the job. If you're a very background person, you can work hours and hours into it, think about it, imagine, visualize, and feel for it, then only go for education. Because by compromising, you're compromising someone's like aspiration. Because if a teacher says you're not good enough, then you accept that so easily.
Yeah.
Students are so highly influenced by it, so you have to work a lot. It's like you have to become a student for you to become a teacher. That's
Yeah,
really very
that's
important.
wonderful. I think we've come to the last, towards the last of the conversation, and I think from this entire like conversation that we've had, like one thing that affected me the most is that if you are to influence learning, you need to know how to learn first. And I think that is something that I'll be carrying with me for a long time, I guess. Not just in like classrooms in colleges, like even I think corporates mapani, and even in the organizations, people are too focused on like blaming a certain employee, or telling that some employee has performed really good. So I think if interventions like you are doing in your classroom to create that wonderful environment to help learning become more feasible for everybody, Amlipani, I think as a like organization working in EI, we're trying to do something similar. Corporates or Amlipani, we're trying to improve the like emotional climate in teams, so that it's not just one person taking all the credit and other person just feeling discouraged and not wanting to work again. Rather than like doing that, we're trying to make an environment as such that, like you said, where people can reflect, where people can learn from what they've done, good or bad, and then evolve from there on. So I think this was a very wonderful conversation for me today. Thank you so much for your time, and I hope we get to have such conversations with you in the future as well. So I hope you had a very good time listening to this conversation. I'm sure you have questions, comments, or any observations throughout the talk that we had today. So if you do, please write to us, and until the next time, please take care and stay tuned.